Welcome to Theory of Pets. I'm a passionate pet owner with a drive to help others like me uncover the truth about the pet industry and what goes on behind the scenes. Hey guys, it's episode 6 of Theory of Pets. My name's Samantha, for those of you that are new around here. And Theory of Pets is a podcast that just talks about all things pet related. So I take you guys comments and questions that you leave on our website, which is theoryofpets.com, and I try and find answers to those. I answer my own questions some weeks that I've been curious about. And one of the things that I really was kind of skeptical about was dog DNA tests. They're becoming more popular now. You're seeing more companies do them, and you're hearing about them more. So I wanted to know, I answered my own question this week, and I wanted to know what was up with these DNA tests. What are they? What are they good for? Are they beneficial? How expensive are they? So I got looking around, and you can get some fairly cheap. You can get them as cheap as about $50, or they can be as expensive as a couple of $100. And as with anything, of course, with dog DNA tests, what you pay for is what you get. So with the $50 ones, you're pretty much just getting your dog's background. What breeds are they made up of? This is, I guess, important if you have a mutt and you're curious about what breeds he's made up of. It's also important if you have a purebred dog and you want to make sure that he is purebred, as the breeder says. So there are some common reasons like that behind it. And then there are also some health reasons to get these dog DNA tests. And the more research I did, the more I realized that the more expensive tests, those tests that you can buy for $200 or $200 or more dollars, are going to give you a lot of information about your dog's health as well. And even the cheaper ones, if you're just looking for breed, those can give you some health insights too. Certain breeds are more prone to certain genetic conditions, certain health conditions, things like arthritis, hip dysplasia, certain types of cancer. Those things can be genetic. So if you find out what breed your dog is, you might find out that he's more prone to certain things. And then if you have a young dog, you can be proactive about that. If you adopt an older dog or you don't do the test until your dog's older, it gives you those warning signs to kind of watch out for, and some great information for your vet. If you, for example, our dog has a heart condition, and to get that diagnosed, she has cardiomyopathy. And to get that diagnosed, she was at the vets. She stayed overnight at the vets for 4 days. It was extremely expensive for us. It took a lot of testing to kind of weed out, because there are so many issues that can happen with a dog's heart that they kind of weed out the more common ones first. Cardiomyopathy happens to be one of the less common ones. So we went through a lot of testing and a lot of money and a lot of stress and anxiety for us before we figured that out. Had we done a genetic test before, or a DNA test before, and we knew that boxers were more susceptible to that, we could have maybe mentioned that and done that testing first. So, there are a lot of benefits to these tests. The DNA testing in general, that's just going to give you the breed information, and you're going to find out if your dog is a purebred boxer or maybe a mix of a boxer and a Labrador and a German Shepherd, or whatever the case may be. The cheaper tests don't offer as many breeds. So some of them, for example, the more expensive ones might offer over 150 breeds. Some of the cheaper tests might only test for the most common 50 breeds. So keep that in mind. Again, this is just one of those cases where you get what you pay for. So those cheaper tests don't test for as many things. The more expensive tests will test for other things as well as breed. And one that I stumbled upon is called Embark. And Embark is, I would say, the most inclusive dog DNA genetic test on the market. It works the same way as a DNA test for humans. You just, you order it, you get a kit in the mail, and there's a swab in there. You swab the cheek of the dog and you send it back in, and then the lab tests it. It takes 6 to 8 weeks to get the results back, but you're getting emails, at once a week or once every other week while this process is going on, just letting you know that they're doing breed testing right now. They're doing genetic testing right now. They're looking for these kind of common diseases, whatever the case may be that they're working on at the moment. You'll get these little updates throughout. And then 6 to 8 weeks later, you get the extensive results from your dog's DNA test. Or genetic testing, I guess, but both in this case for Embark. So Embark's a more expensive kit. It costs about $200, but you can get a lot of really beneficial information from the test. This week, I was able to speak with Ryan Boyko, who is the CEO of Embark. And as I mentioned, they are a company that does genetic and DNA testing on dogs. Embark offers some things that other dog DNA testing companies didn't offer. So that's why I wanted to speak with them and get some information about genetic testing on dogs and the benefits of that and so on. So I will jump right into the interview and let Ryan explain those benefits to you all as well. So I guess my first question would just be, dog genetics. I think it's something that people don't know a whole lot about. So when they hear DNA tests for dogs, they don't really know what to expect. So could you tell me just a little bit about dog genetics and why they're so important?
Yeah, so dogs are the most diverse animals on Earth. You can see 2-pound Chihuahuas, 200-pound Great Danes, right? And a lot of that diversity is you see in the breed itself. And so if you tell me this is a Great Dane, I know that it's going to be a big dog, right? And that kind of stuff. But dogs are also, even within breeds, have a lot of unique characteristics and even health issues that are known in a breed. Some are affected, some are not affected. And so having a comprehensive dog, genetic profile like we provide lets an owner know, first of all, what breeds are in their dog if they don't know, which gives ideas about personality and some disorders and all that, but also lets you know uniquely your dog, what kind of health concerns they might have, what some of the traits and other kinds of things about your individual dog.
Yeah, that's definitely great information to have, especially if you have a younger dog. And then there's also some health conditions that maybe aren't breed specific, but you guys test for a lot of different health conditions. Could you tell me a little bit about those and why that's so important?
Yeah, exactly. We test for example, MDR, which is a drug sensitivity. So it's actually not like a genetic disease. It's actually just a sensitivity to certain veterinary drugs, things that are anti-parasitic, anti-cancer drugs, those kind of stuff, commonly used drugs. And so that affects a whole bunch of different breeds, most of the shepherding breeds and some sight hounds. And it's also in 8% of mixes, of shepherd mixes. So even some dogs that don't look like a shepherding dog are affected. So just, one example of something that's in a lot of mixed breed dogs and in a whole bunch of different breeds. There's others, so there's a heart disease that we test for that's in a whole lot of different breeds and mixes. Bladder stones is another one. Exercise-induced collapse. There's a whole bunch of different diseases. We test for over 160.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Some of them are more breed-specific than others, but many of them affect lots of different breeds and lots of different mixed breeds.
Yeah, I'm interested, as I told you, that I've tried an Embark test, and it takes, just for viewers that don't know, it takes 6 to 8 weeks to get your results back. So we have a boxer who, she's middle-aged, and she's already been diagnosed with a heart condition with cardiomyopathy, but that would have been something that if we were able to or knew about, I guess, dog genetic testing when she was younger, if we had tested for that beforehand and knew that was kind of coming, what can pet parents do if they find out, for example, if you sent our test back and it said, our dog was prone to those conditions, what can people do with that information?
Yes, so several of them, you can change the dog's diet and, reduce the severity or the delay onset or potentially prevent the onset of some of these conditions. Bladder stones is a big one where we've had people test positive for that and make changes in their dog's diet. But there's a number of other conditions, some of which you might not even guess, but where dietary changes can actually make a big difference. You can also, just knowing in advance will help you and your veterinarian plan for what your dog might experience in the future, which can accelerate when they get treated, can prevent you from a lot of stress and not knowing and paying thousands of dollars in bills to figure out what the problem is, when this could let you know in advance what that problem likely is. A lot of the diseases, especially neuromuscular type diseases, they have similar presentations, a whole bunch of different diseases. So you have to test a wide variety of things once the dog exhibits symptoms, unless you already know. We had one customer with a dog with exercise-induced collapse gene, where they couldn't understand what was going on with their dog, and had spent a good bit of money and time trying to figure it out and what they should do about it. And the disease, that in particular, exercise-induced collapse, isn't that dangerous to the dog. It's just shocking to the owner. The dog runs for a little bit and collapses. And so knowing what it was helped them know, both what to do and also, put their mind at ease.
And does Embark have veterinarians or canine health specialists on staff? Do you give advice or information about these things, or do you simply explain the test results and then the pet owner is kind of on their own to see their veterinarian and seek advice for what the findings are?
So, yeah, we have a veterinarian who's trained in genetics, as well as a DVM, who actually emails or calls everyone who has a positive result before they get all of the results released to them. And so we provide a lot of information and contact about the illness generally, and presentation, and what studies have shown people can do. We don't replace your veterinarian, so in the end, if you have any results, you have to veterinarian and make a plan about what exactly you're going to do for your dog, because you need somebody who can see the dog and knows the whole veterinary history and the age. All of that plays into what the right thing to do is. So we're not the final diagnosis or replacing your vet, but we definitely don't leave you clueless.
Yeah, no, that's great. So you at least give people a starting point to, kind of understand it a little bit. I know, for example, for us, again, I'll go back to our boxer, Chloe, when we first heard the diagnosis that she had cardiomyopathy and that it was a heart condition. She had spent a night at the vets actually to do some tests and things like that. So we heard that information over the phone, and then it's a 30-minute drive to our vet. So for 30 minutes, we're kind of racking our brains about, what can this mean and kind of what the future holds. So it's sort of, it's, I think, a really nice thing that you guys at least give that initial information so that, pet parents can kind of ease their mind a little bit about where to go moving forward, and then touch base with their vet to make, a more formal plan, I guess.
Yep, exactly.
Great. So dog DNA tests, one thing about them, I think that a lot of people that I hear, I guess from a lot of people, are that they're so expensive, and pet parents are always saying, they're expensive, and is it something that's really necessary? But one of the great things about DNA tests is that they kind of pay off in the long run. Can you explain a little bit about how the tests are actually a benefit financially to pet owners?
Yeah. As I said before, we've had people who, several people have tested positive, several of these dogs, for conditions where you can avoid literally thousands of dollars in emergency veterinary care and unnecessary testing. We had a woman who sent us these long emails because, she had bought the Embark test, and then a week later, her dog got ill and couldn't urinate, and so she had to take him to the emergency room. It was on a weekend, and she spent about $2,000 there to get to basically find out the dog had bladder stones. And then our test results came back shortly thereafter, which unfortunately would have maybe helped her avoid that if she'd bought it a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
But we weren't selling. She bought it right when we started selling it, so just unfortunate. But it did help though narrow down what kind of bladder stones they were and what the treatment plan moving forward should be.
Oh, good.
So it still helped her, but again, you never know what it is that your dog might have, and where that benefit's going to come. But we've had many of our dogs have tested positive for things that in the end are going to, knowing that information is going to save their owner literally thousands of dollars.
If a pet owner is thinking about doing any type of genetic testing, do you recommend that it's something done in younger years? Is there a certain age that maybe, when you first get a puppy at 8 weeks old, is that too young to do it? Or is there, a better age to do the testing at?
Well, the beautiful thing is your genes don't change. So as long as the dog has saliva, then you can get the dog tested. So, an 8-week-old puppy is certainly fine to test. In fact, I took the sample on my puppy when she was 8 weeks old. So there's really no age that's too young. It obviously, it's one of those things where the benefits accrue over time. And,
right.
Some of the conditions we test for present when a dog is a few weeks old. Some present when the dog's, 6 months or a year old, and some present when they're 4 or 5. And,
Sure.
Some of the ones, especially related to blindness and things, will present when they're 8, 9 years old. And so it's always valuable because there's always things that we're testing for that, that might impact a dog late in their life. There's some of the things we test for, but obviously the earlier you can test, the more time you have to potentially change the course of your dog's life through changes in their lifestyle or their diet or other things. And, the more time you have to accrue that benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. And the data that you collect now, I know, again, because I've done one of the tests, you do a questionnaire in the beginning, and then obviously you send in the sample, and you guys do so many tests on that. Do you use any of that data for research of any kind?
Yeah, exactly. In fact, we're excited that in the next few weeks we're going to be releasing several what we're calling mini checkups, but they actually use your dog's genetics and some of their results. Some of it's related to their breed mix and some their personal genetics, and then ask you a series of questions about their diet and exercise, for example, and their history with allergies or things about the behavior. We have several different of these that are going to be coming online, and it gives you a chance to give us some information, which helps us do research into the future to understand the genetics of more things, and but also gives you information where we actually get to put together what we know of the genetics of your dog and what you know from living with your dog, and put that together and actually give the user the pet parent recommendations about their feeding and exercise and allergies and all of that kind of stuff. So we're really excited because our customers, all the pet parents, really want to know as much as possible, and so we've spent months building these with some of the biggest with veterinarians and some of the biggest academic researchers in the field to be able to give you that kind of information. Our goal is really, as a company, is that no dog should have to die of a hereditary disease, and so we're attacking that by giving people information now, but also working with the best researchers in the world to understand, to discover new things, and also working with breeders to help them breed out, diseases from their animals, from their dogs.
Yeah, our boxer's cardiomyopathy is a genetic disease that actually, she's a rescue dog and came from some very irresponsible breeding. So that's a passion of mine that I like to educate people about as well. And actually, one of my previous podcasts touched on that, and I've written a lot of articles for that as well to educate people about irresponsible breeding and how a lot of these genetic diseases could very easily, like you said, be bred out if people would do the proper testing and things like that. So I have a passion for that as well, and kudos to you guys for working towards that.
Yeah, ultimately it's a partnership with us and pet parents to not only do the best for the dogs they have now, but to demand. We want to be able to give the information that's going to enable people to know which breeders are reputable and care about really care about the health of their dogs. It's together kind of with the consumer demand for healthy breeding practices and information that we can provide, that we can in the long run, make dogs healthier across the board from breeding out these diseases.
Yeah, it would be a wonderful thing if, in future years, breeders were required to have genetic testing on their dogs so that potential pet parents could see, the diseases that would run in that family, I guess, of dogs. So it's a wonderful thing, and again, it's a passion of mine, so I'm excited about it as well. And I really kudos to you guys for doing that, because it is certainly very important for dogs that we have now as well as future generations. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview and the conversation that I was able to have with Ryan. Obviously, I learned a lot and answered my own personal question, and I hope that if any of you were wondering about dog DNA testing, that's answered your question as well. And if you're new to dog DNA testing and you kind of stumbled across it, or maybe you're a fan of my podcast, you've been listening and you just happened to listen this week to get some more information, it's definitely something that takes a little bit of research to understand, and I encourage you to do that. I've posted a couple of links in the show notes for this podcast on our website, theoryofpets.com. And those include the Embark website as well as some other information about DNA testing and dog genetics. So you can start there, and that will certainly give you a lot of information about where to begin your research, and maybe, if a dog DNA test is a good fit for your pet. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Again, I hope you guys got some great information out of it as I did. And if you did enjoy it and you wouldn't mind just taking a minute to give us a review on iTunes, that would be super beneficial to me. It helps me spread the news of the podcast faster, and it also helps us the better the reviews we get. Obviously, the more pet experts I'm able to get in here, and just experts in the industry overall, I can get to speak with me. So that makes my job easier, and it makes me be able to get in touch with some people to answer some of your questions as well. As always, if you're new to the show, please hop on our website, theoryofpets.com. There's a comment section. You can leave any comments or questions. There's a spot there where you can record a comment or question that I might use on a future podcast. And if you're not comfortable with that, you can type those comments and questions. And anything pet related, it doesn't have to be dogs. If you have a question about pets, let me know. I will do my best to answer it for you, find an expert in the field to chat with about it, and just get as much information as I can for you. Odds are, if you have that question, and there are other pet parents out there that do too. And the whole goal of Theory of Pets is to kind of bring us together as a community of pet owners. So I really would love to hear from you guys, and that's going to be a big part of the show for me. So I encourage you to jump on theoryofpets.com. You'll see the comment section there, and it's really easy to do. And again, if you enjoyed this and you want to share it with others, feel free to share it, and make sure you get on iTunes and leave us a review. I will be back next week with another podcast for you guys. I can't wait to talk to you then. Have an excellent week, and I hope you guys enjoy it.